Welcome to Viking Storytime. I'll be using mostly Old Norse terms and reconstructed pronunciation. This is from the book In the Days of Giants. And now, the story of Skadi's choice. The giant Thiazi, whom Thor slew for the theft of Idun and the magic apples, had a daughter, Skadi, who was a very good sort of girl, as giantesses go. Most of them were evil-tempered, spiteful, and cruel creatures who desired only to do harm to the gods and to all who were good. But Skadi was different, stronger than the hatred of her race for the Aesir, stronger even than her wish to be revenged for her father's death, was her love for Baldur the Beautiful, the pride of all the gods. If she had not been a giantess, she might have hoped that he would love her also, but she knew that no one who lived in Ósgardr would ever think kindly of her race, which had caused so much trouble to Baldur and his brothers. After her father was killed by the Aesir, however, Skadi had a wise idea. Skadi put on her helm and corselet and set out for Ósgardr, meaning to ask a noble price to pay for the sorrow of Thiazi's death. The gods, who had all grown young and boyish once again, were sitting in Valhalla, merrily enjoying a banquet in honor of Idun's safe return, when Skadi, clattering with steel, strode into their midst. Heimdallr, the watchman, astonished at the sight, had let this maiden warrior pass him upon the Rainbow Bridge. The Aesir set down their cups hastily, and the laughter died upon their lips. For though she looked handsome, Skadi was a terrible figure in her silver armor, and with her spear as long as a ship's mast brandished in her giant hand. The 9 Valkyries, Odin's maiden warriors, hurried away to put on their own helmets and shields, for they would not have this other maiden, 10 times as huge, see them meekly waiting at table while they had battle dresses as fine as hers to show the stranger. "Who are you, maiden, and what seek you here?" asked Father Odin.
"I am Skadi, the daughter of Thiazi, whom your folk have slain," answered she, "and I have come here for redress."
At these words, the coward Loki, who had been at the killing of Thiazi, skulked low behind the table, but Thor, who had done the killing, straightened himself and clenched his fists tightly. He was not afraid of any giant, however fierce, and this maiden with her shield and spear only angered him. "Well, Skadi," quoth Odin gravely, "your father was a thief and died for his sins. He stole fair Idun and her magic apples, and for that crime he died, which was only just. Yet because our righteous deed has left you an orphan, Skadi, we will grant you a recompense, so you shall be at peace with us. For it is not fitting that the Aesir should quarrel with women. What is it, you ask, O Skadi, as solace for the death of Thiazi?" Skadi looked like an orphan who was well able to take care of herself. And this indeed her next words showed her to be.
"I ask 2 things,
she said, without a moment's hesitation.
I ask the husband whom I shall select from among you, and I ask that you shall make me laugh, for it is many days since grief has let me enjoy a smile."
At this strange request, the Aesir looked astonished, and some of them seemed rather startled, for you can fancy that none of them wanted a giantess, however handsome, for his wife. They put their heads together and consulted long whether or not they should allow Skadi her 2 wishes.
"I will agree to make her laugh,"
grinned Loki.
"But suppose she should choose me for her husband. I am married to 1 giantess already."
"No fear of that, Loki," said Thor. You are too near being the cause of her father's death for her to love you overmuch. Nor do I think that she will choose me, so I am safe." Loki chuckled and stole away to think up a means of making Skadi laugh. Finally, the gods agreed that Skadi should choose one of them for her husband. But in order that all might have a fair chance of missing this honor, which no one coveted, she was to choose in a curious way. All the Aesir were to stand in a row behind the curtain which was drawn across the end of the hall so that only their feet were seen by Skadi. And by their feet alone, Skadi was to select who was to be her husband. Now Skadi was very ready to agree to this, for she said to herself,
"Surely I shall know the feet of Balder, for they will be the most beautiful of any."
Amid nervous laughter at this new game, the Aesir arranged themselves in a row behind the purple curtain, with only their line of feet showing below the golden border. There were Father Odin, Thor the Thunderer, and Balder, his brother. There was old Njoror the Rich, with his fair son, Freyr. There were Turn the Bold, Bragi the Poet, Blind Holder, and Vidar the Silent, Voli and Uller the Archers, Forseti the Wise Judge, and Heimdallr the Gold-Toothed Watchman. Loki alone, of all the Aesir, was not there. And Loki was the only one who did not shiver as Skadi walked up and down the hall looking at the row of feet. Up and down, back and forth went Skadi, looking carefully, and among all those sandaled feet there was one pair more white and fair and beautiful than the rest.
"Surely these are Balder's feet,"
she thought, while her heart thumped with eagerness under her silver corselet.
"Oh, if I guess aright, dear Balder will be my husband."
She paused confidently before the handsomest pair of feet, and pointing to them with her spear, she cried,
"I choose here. Few blemishes are to be found in Balder the Beautiful."
A shout of laughter arose behind the curtain, and forth slunk, not young Balder, but old Njoror the Rich, king of the ocean wind, the father of those fair twins, Freyr and Freyja. Skadi had chosen the handsome feet of old Njoror, and thenceforth he must be her husband. Njoror was little pleased, but Skadi was heartbroken. Her face grew longer and sadder than before when he stepped up and took her hand sulkily, saying, "Well, I am to be your husband then, and all my riches stored in Noatun, the home of ships, are to be yours. You would have chosen Balder, and I wish that this luck had been his. However, it cannot be helped now."
"Nay,"
answered Skadi, frowning.
"The bargain is not yet complete. No one of you has made me laugh. I am so sad now that it will be a merry jest indeed, which can wring laughter from my heavy heart."
She sighed, looking at Balder, but Balder loved only Nanna in all the world. Just then, out came Loki, riding on one of Thor's goat steeds, and the red-bearded fellow pulled such a ridiculous stunt with the gray-bearded goat that soon not only Skadi, but all the Aesir and Njoror himself were holding their sides with laughter.
Fairly won,"
cried Skadi, wiping the tears from her eyes.
"I am beaten. I shall not forget that it is Loki to whom I owe this last joke. Someday I shall get revenge on you, Red Joker."
And this threat she carried out in the end, on the day of Loki's punishment. Skadi was married to old Njoror, both unwilling, and they went to live among the mountains in Skadi's home, which had once been Thiazi's palace, where he had shut Idun in a prison cell. As you can imagine, Njoror and Skadi did not live happily ever after, like the good prince and princess in the storybooks. For in the first place, Skadi was a giantess, and there are few folk, I fancy, who could live happily with a giantess. In the second place, she did not love Njoror, nor did he love Skadi, and neither forgot that Skadi's choosing had been sorrow to them both. But the third reason was the most important of all, and this was because Skadi and Njoror could not agree upon the place which should be their home. For Njoror did not like the mountain palace of Skadi's people, the place where roaring winds rushed down upon the sea and its ships. The sea with its ships was his friend, and he wanted to dwell in Njoror, where he had greater wealth than anyone else in the world, where he could rule the fresh sea wind and tame the wild ocean, granting the prayers of fisherfolk and the seafarers who loved his name. Finally, they agreed to dwell first in one place, then in the other, so that each might be happy in turn. For 9 days they lingered in Thrymheimr, and then they spent 3 in Njoror. But even this arrangement could not bring peace. One day they had a terrible quarrel, for it was just after they had come down from Skadi's mountain home for their 3 days in Njoror's sea palace, and he was so glad to be back that he cried,
"Ah, how I hate your hills! How long the 9 nights seemed, with the wolves howling until dawn among the dark mountains of Giantland. What a discord compared to the songs of the swans who sail upon my dear, dear ocean."
Thus rudely he taunted his wife, but Skadi answered him with spirit.
"And I cannot sleep by your rolling sea waves, where the birds are ever calling, calling as they come from the woods on the shore. Each morning the seagull's scream wakes me at some unseemly hour. I will not stay here even for 3 nights. I will not stay."
"And I will have no more of your windy mountaintops," roared Njoror, beside himself with rage. "Go if you wish. Go back to Thrymheimr. I shall not follow you, be sure."
So Skadi went back to her mountains alone, and dwelt in the empty house of Thiazi, her father. She became a mighty huntress, swift on the skis and ice runners which she strapped to her feet. Day after day she skimmed over the snow-crested mountains, bow in hand, to hunt the wild beasts which roamed there. Ski Goddess, she was called, and never again did she come to the halls of Osgardr. Quite alone in the cold country, she hunted heartily, keeping ever in her heart the image of Baldur, the beautiful, whom she loved, but whom she had lost forever by her unlucky choice. Thanks for watching. Skål, prost, and cheers.